For generations, we have been told a story of a vast, untamed wilderness, a continent awaiting discovery, a blank canvas upon which a new nation would be painted. America, a land of endless frontiers, yearning to be settled. But what if this story is a mirage? Look closely. Beneath the concrete and steel, beneath the mythology of an empty land, lies another truth. A truth whispered by the earth itself, written in forgotten mounds and ancient pathways. This is not the story of a new world, but the rediscovery of a world already ancient, already vibrant, already profoundly complex. Long before the first European sails touched these shores, this continent was alive. It teemed with millions of people, a kaleidoscope of cultures, languages, and nations. This was not a wilderness to be conquered, but a mosaic of sophisticated societies, deeply intertwined with the land they called home. The story we are about to uncover began not with arrival, but with existence. An existence so rich, so profound, that its echoes still resonate, if only we learn how to listen. Imagine a North America not as a pristine void, but as a living tapestry, a continent where 18 million, perhaps even 100 million people lived, thrived, and built civilizations for millennia. From the frozen Arctic to the sweltering Caribbean, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, every river, every forest, every mountain held a name, a history, a sacred purpose. The very notion of empty wilderness is a cruel fabrication, a convenient narrative designed to justify conquest. It strips away not just the people, but their sophisticated relationship with the land. These were not isolated hunter-gatherers wandering aimlessly. These were nations, societies, with intricate social structures, spiritual philosophies, and an understanding of their environment that far surpassed what many of us comprehend today. But the real story began long before America existed, in places like the fertile floodplains near present-day St. Louis, Illinois. Here, from around 1050 to 1050 CE, rose a city so monumental, so advanced, it would dwarf any European settlement of its time. This was Cahokia. At its peak, Cahokia was home to an estimated 20,000 people, a metropolis with a population greater than London in the same era. Its heart was Monk's Mound, a colossal earthen structure rising over 100 feet, covering 14 acres at its base, larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in the Americas, a testament to an unparalleled feat of engineering and social organization. Cahokia was no mere collection of huts. It was a planned city, laid out with sophisticated urban design, featuring plazas, residential districts, and ceremonial spaces. A massive wooden solar calendar, known as Woodhenge, precisely tracked the solstices and equinoxes, guiding agricultural cycles and spiritual rituals. The society was hierarchical, led by powerful chiefs, priests, and shamans who commanded vast resources and labor. Their agricultural prowess focused on the three sisters. Corn, beans, and squash sustained a dense population, transformed the landscape, and generated surpluses for trade. Cahokia was the nexus of a vast trade network, its influence stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast. Obsidian from the Rockies, copper from Lake Superior, mica from the Appalachians, and conch shells from the Gulf of Mexico all flowed into Cahokia, symbolizing its economic and political power. Yet, around 1300 CE, this great city began to fade. Its people dispersed, its mounds fell silent. The exact reasons remain. one of North America's most profound mysteries. Environmental changes, internal conflicts, spiritual shifts, whatever the cause, Cahokia stands as a colossal monument to a complex civilization that thrived and then vanished, leaving only earth and echoes. Cahokia was not an anomaly, but a shining beacon within an intricate tapestry of continental exchange. For thousands of years, long before European maps, North America possessed sophisticated trade systems, vast arteries of commerce and communication that spanned thousands of miles. This was a complex economy, fueled by demand for prestige goods, vital resources, and cultural exchange. Shells, particularly conch and abalone, were not just decorative. They were currency, symbols of status, and sacred ceremonial objects, traveling from coastlines deep into the interior. Copper, mined from the shores of Lake Superior, was hammered into tools, ornaments, and ceremonial effigies, reaching societies hundreds of miles away. Obsidian, its volcanic glass, sharp enough for surgical blades, traveled from sources in the West in Mesoamerica. But it wasn't just raw materials. Food, tools, medicines, textiles, and ceremonial goods. Each carried stories, traditions, and alliances from one nation to another. The great river systems, the Mississippi, the Ohio, the Columbia, the Colorado, functioned as superhighways, connecting distant peoples, fostering political and economic alliances, and enabling the rapid exchange of ideas and innovations. This was a sophisticated communication network, a continent connected by diplomacy, trade, and shared knowledge, long before the concept of a United States ever existed. The peoples of ancient North America were not merely living in nature. They were actively shaping it. They were sophisticated environmental engineers and master agriculturists. Their farming techniques were not rudimentary, but highly advanced, developed over millennia to suit diverse ecosystems. The three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, grown together in companion planting, formed the nutritional backbone of many societies, a symbiotic system that enriched the soil and provided balanced sustenance. In the arid Southwest, Pueblo peoples developed intricate irrigation systems, diverting precious water from rivers to nourish vast fields, turning deserts into gardens. In the eastern woodlands, societies meticulously managed forests through controlled burns, a practice often misunderstood as destructive. These deliberate fires cleared underbrush, promoted the growth of edible plants, created game trails, and prevented catastrophic wildfires, creating a park-like environment rich in resources. This wasn't just living off the land. It was an active, intelligent partnership, a profound understanding of ecological systems. These ancient caretakers cultivated landscapes, engineered food security, and managed biodiversity, leaving behind a legacy of sustainable land stewardship that challenges our modern assumptions about human impact on the environment. Beyond the great cities, North America was a political landscape as diverse and dynamic as any continent on Earth, home to powerful nations and complex systems of governance. In the Northeast, around the Great Lakes, arose the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, often known as the Iroquois. Formed centuries before the United States, this alliance of originally 5, later 6 nations was governed by the Great Law of Peace. This sophisticated constitutional agreement established a representative democracy, balanced power, and ensured peace among warring factions, influencing later American democratic thought. Their longhouses were not just homes, but political centers, and their wampum belts recorded treaties and historical narratives, symbolizing a diplomacy rooted in deep tradition. In the arid Southwest, the ancestors of today's Pueblo peoples engineered wonders. From impressive cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde to the sprawling urban complexes of Chaco Canyon, they built multi-story stone cities integrated with celestial observations. Chaco Canyon, with its massive kivas and intricate road systems spanning hundreds of miles, was a ceremonial and economic hub. A marvel of ancient urban planning and astronomical engineering in an unforgiving landscape. Their communities revolved around agriculture, deep spiritual practices, and profound understanding of the cosmos, a legacy still vibrant today. On the vast Great Plains, nations like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Comanche developed societies intrinsically linked to the immense buffalo herds. Though often portrayed as solely nomadic, many maintained semi-sedentary villages, cultivating crops. Their deep spiritual connection to the land and animals, their warrior traditions, and their communal ways of life forged powerful, resilient nations, uniquely adapted to their environment. Along the rainy, resource-rich Pacific Northwest coast, nations like the Haida, Tlingit, and Kwakiutl flourished without agriculture, sustained by the abundant salmon, cedar, and marine life. They developed highly stratified societies, intricate artistic traditions manifest in monumental totem poles, and complex ceremonies like the potlatch, where wealth was publicly redistributed to affirm social status and alliances. Their deep respect for resources ensured sustainable abundance for generations. Even further south, the sophisticated civilizations of Mesoamerica, the Olmec, Maya, and Aztec, exerted a cultural influence that reached far into North America. Evidence of their art, architectural styles, and even agricultural techniques can be found in sites like Serpent Mound in Ohio, and through the spread of corn cultivation, demonstrating a vast, interconnected cultural sphere, often underestimated in its reach. These were not primitive peoples, but architects of empires, innovators of agriculture, and guardians of profound spiritual traditions. Beneath the political structures and trade networks lay a profound spiritual and psychological worldview, deeply interwoven with every aspect of life. For these societies, the land was not property to be owned, but a living entity, an ancestor, a sacred relation. Every rock, every tree, every animal possessed a spirit, a story, a connection to the greater web of existence. Ceremonies were not mere rituals. They were vital acts of reciprocity, acknowledgments of dependence on the natural world, and expressions of gratitude. Sacred sites, often natural formations or monumental earthworks, were focal points for spiritual journeys, communing with ancestors, and seeking guidance. Oral traditions were living libraries, preserving millennia of history, wisdom, cosmology, and ethical teachings. They were passed down through generations, ensuring continuity and identity. This deep emotional and psychological connection to the land, to ancestors, and to the spiritual realm meant that every act, every decision, carried profound significance. It was a holistic worldview, where human well-being was inseparable from the health of the earth and the harmony of the cosmos, a world vastly different from the one that would soon arrive. When the first European ships finally reached the shores of this continent, they did not find an empty wilderness. They encountered a world teeming with life, complex societies, and powerful nations. Their initial journals and accounts, often suppressed or reinterpreted later, speak volumes about the shock they experienced. Explorers like Giovanni da Veritano, sailing along the east coast in 1524, described populous shorelines, so full of people, and dense forests managed with such order that they resembled parkland. Spanish conquistadors in the southeast encountered vast chiefdoms with thousands of warriors and intricate political structures. The continent Europeans encountered was far from empty. It was a mosaic of organized societies engaging in sophisticated diplomacy, trade, and even warfare. Some early European powers, particularly the Dutch and French, quickly recognized the political strength of these indigenous nations, forging alliances and treaties, often respecting their sovereignty initially. There was fear, fascination, and profound misunderstanding on both sides, but also undeniable evidence of established civilizations. The myth of an empty land only began to solidify much later as a justification for what was to come. Then came the invisible enemy. The true architects of devastation were not steel and gunpowder, but pathogens, smallpox, measles, influenza, typhus, diseases against which indigenous peoples had no immunity. These epidemics swept across the continent like wildfire, often traveling ahead of the European explorers themselves. Entire societies, sometimes 90% or more, of populations, were decimated within a generation. Villages lay abandoned, fields untended, political structures crumbled under the weight of overwhelming loss. What disappeared was not only land, but memory itself. The psychological trauma was incomprehensible. A culture's elders, its knowledge keepers, its spiritual leaders, often the first to succumb, taking with them millennia of accumulated wisdom. This silent catastrophe created the illusion of an empty continent, clearing the path for colonization. The lands that Europeans later discovered and settled were often those already emptied by disease, their vibrant societies reduced to shadows, their complex histories erased by an unseen hand. This hidden role of disease is one of the most devastating, yet underplayed realities in North American history. The waves of disease were followed by waves of colonization. As European powers expanded, the deliberate destruction of indigenous cultures and the systematic rewriting of history became tools of conquest. Land seizures and forced removals, like the infamous Trail of Tears, violently displaced entire nations, shattering their connection to ancestral lands. Cultural destruction was equally brutal. Languages were suppressed, spiritual practices forbidden, and traditional governance undermined. Boarding schools, established with the explicit aim to kill the Indians, save the man, forcibly assimilated children, severing them from their heritage. The narrative of an empty wilderness became entrenched, a justification for the appropriation of land and resources. The sophisticated cities, the vast trade networks, the advanced agriculture, the powerful nations, all were systematically erased from mainstream consciousness, deemed primitive or simply forgotten. The true history of North America before the United States was not just buried under soil, but under layers of intentional silence. A convenient narrative for a nation building its identity. But the past is never truly erased. It lies dormant, waiting to be rediscovered. Beneath our sprawling cities, beneath our highways and subdivisions, another world persists. Modern St. Louis, Missouri, stands just across the river from the colossal earthworks of Cahokia. Its grid system, its very layout, whispers of the ancient metropolis it unknowingly overshadows. Many of our modern roads and interstates follow the precise paths of ancient trade routes, carved into the landscape by millennia of footsteps and canoes. Forgotten mound cities, remnants of the vast Mississippian cultures, still lie beneath Midwestern farmlands and suburban parks, their shapes barely discernible, awaiting recognition. Ancient farming terraces, and irrigation canals, now overgrown, are still visible in the arid southwest. This is the profound, unsettling reality. America was not built on empty land, but on the foundations of older, powerful civilizations. A hidden world, literally buried beneath the one we inhabit, a testament to a continent that breathed and thrived long before its current name. This is not merely a forgotten history. It is a fundamental question about identity, about memory, and about the very ground we stand on. What does it mean for modern America to exist on top of older, forgotten worlds? Worlds of immense ingenuity, profound spirituality, and intricate social order. How different would our world look if these civilizations had continued their development, uninterrupted by disease and conquest? What wisdom, what innovations, what ecological stewardship might have been passed down to us? The silence around these histories is not accidental. It is an active omission. But the earth remembers, the mounds remember, the rivers remember, and perhaps it is finally time for us to remember too. To acknowledge the truth of a continent that was always alive, always inhabited, always complex. To uncover the extraordinary reality of America before America existed. This documentary was crafted using advanced AI technology to push the boundaries of visual storytelling. If you value this blend of innovation and history, please subscribe to support the growth of this channel. It only takes a moment, but it ensures you are the very first to be notified when our next feature premieres.